Come.
Boing!
Kia ora!
Kia ora!
Welcome back to another video.
Today we're going to be doing a few frequently asked questions we found for people that are looking to move here online for working holiday visas and the like. Obviously our experience is from the UK, so it may vary if you're coming from a different country, but I'm sure there'll be similarities between a lot of it.
So the first question somebody asked is, I am visiting New Zealand for 2 weeks and want to know if I can withdraw New Zealand dollars from my Visa/JCB card. Also, where is best to exchange currency? Thanks.
So JCB I'm assuming is a bank.
Yeah.
But like Visa cards and stuff, you can put them in most ATMs. There are some that say like no international cards. And depending on your bank will depend on charges. That varies a lot. Like for us, the bank that we were with back in the UK, they don't actually charge you for taking money out for ATMs. Obviously there's the exchange rate and it's not necessarily the best.
I remember paying for something and it would have the charge separate on my bank statement, and it would say like £9 Visa card charge, which, you know, is a lot of money to have to pay for buying something.
It quickly adds up, right, if you do that. In terms of places where ATMs are, the banks are generally the best. BNZ, it seems that all of them have been fine with our cards, and we haven't run into any issues there. So, yeah. Okay, so next up is someone asking, what are the absolute must-haves to bring?
Is that Will?
Don't know.
Take two.
Where were we? Okay, so the next question was someone asking the absolute must-haves to bring when they're visiting New Zealand.
The circumstances can differ depending on, well, where you're moving from, for one. Like Ed said, because we came from the UK, we're quite fortunate that the voltage is the same here, so we could have brought a lot of our white goods, a lot of electronics, and just changed the plugs over if we wanted to. But I think for us, we made quite a big decision of packing up sort of everything we own, selling everything, and coming with just one suitcase each. So I think for us, the necessities were clothing. We brought obviously some like our camera equipment that we use all the time.
Yeah, it's tricky as well, right? We're fairly young. We didn't really have anything we needed to bring with us. I mean, I say fairly young, really 30, but it's close enough.
We're
still
young.
It's fine.
Ignore the grades.
We're in the fortunate position where back in the UK, our parents could take some like keepsake bits, you know, stuff we didn't want to just bin or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're actually looking after it for us at the moment.
We could sell everything we own and start over, or ship everything in a shipping container. So I think the general quotes were for like a 20 by 20 container, and you were looking at between 6 and 8 grand just to be able to bring your stuff over. And obviously do your own research before you come, but I was certainly under the impression that it would be really difficult to get secondhand stuff out here, and that really hasn't been the case. Like, we found lots of charity, Goodwill shops, and...
Yeah, they're called family stores here. So
yeah,
if you're from the UK, don't ask for a charity shop, ask for a family store. We actually got our mattress from there.
We did, yeah. It was clean, it was good quality, and we sleep really well on it, so it was a good purchase. But they have, you know, dining tables, sofas, everything you could possibly want for your kitchen. Like, it's really easy to sort of start fresh. I mean, in Christchurch, that's been the case anyway, because we're in a city, so there's more. But
it might play a part that we are in, you know, the largest city on the South Island.
Yeah.
So there is a bit more choice, but, you know, that is where most people live. And if you're coming over here to moving out into the country, while it sounds idyllic, there'll be some drawbacks, I'm sure.
Exactly. So I think to round that up, so long as you've got clothes on your back and shoes on your feet, everything will be fine.
Yeah, and it was.
And it has been. Okay, so the next question we got is, hi all, my visa has come through and I wanted suggestions for the best route to travel from the UK. Thanks.
First off, on a plane, don't get a boat, it'll take you forever. The route we did was we went UK to Los Angeles, to Fiji, to Christchurch. Now, in a total, I think from leaving our house in the UK to landing at Christchurch was about 36 hours,
Yeah.
which is obviously a long time, but we've travelled quite a long way as well. So it is
a long way, and it was the cheapest flight available to us at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we booked 2 weeks before we flew, which is quite short notice,
Yeah.
and the lot more notice you can get, obviously, the cheaper it will be. When we were looking, they were all averaging somewhere between £1,200 to £1,500 was kind of the norm. So the fastest route is Singapore or potentially that one stop via LA or San Francisco. The problem is you don't necessarily want it to be super fast because you want to make sure you don't miss your connection, really.
Yes, that was one of the problems we faced, was some of the flights you could land and then you only had an hour until your next flight. And I think for us going through LAX, the security was, it wasn't insane, but going through, like the border security, we were queuing for a really long time. We wouldn't have made it if it was an hour.
We had 3 hours between each of our sort of flight stops. So I would say anything less than a couple, you're probably going to be rushing around a lot, and you know that's not really what you want to after like traveling for just 20 hours, having like horrible sleep on a plane. You don't want to be suddenly, am I going to get the next plane, or am I going to be stuck here for another 12 hours kind of thing.
Similarly, I wouldn't want to be waiting 6+ hours for my next flight because you'd just be bored at the airport. So I think all in all, it sort of depends on what your budget permits. I mean, our flights in the end were just over £1,000, which wasn't too bad at all. It's a long flight, so from the UK, so be prepared for that. We just flew economy, and you know, we made do.
It's fine, right?
Yeah.
It's a plane. It's gonna, unless you've got the money to spend on business class, it's gonna be a plane. You get your food provided, which was okay. I don't think any of it was awful. Like, it's always got a weird flavour to it, airplane food. I don't know if you know what I mean.
You're very handsy.
I am very handy. You know, like the egg has like a weird kind of... No, it does. Like, airplane egg is like weird compared to normal egg, right?
The pressure.
Maybe it is.
It's under pressure up there.
Maybe it is. Another option though, if you are travelling to get away from egg, is to stop off for a few days somewhere on the way. When we visited in 2018, we did 3 months travelling in New Zealand. Before we came all the way over here, we stopped in San Francisco for 4 nights, I think it was, 4 or 5 nights.
4 nights, 5 days.
To kind of partially for jet lag reasons. You're travelling a long way, so why not see somewhere on the way over here?
If you're just eager to get here like we were happy just to bash out the free flights and we wanted to just get here. It was a big decision, and we just wanted to land and be like, we're home.
Right, next up. Oh, it's about dogs. We are thinking of moving with our dogs, but I've noticed that a lot of beaches have signs that say no dogs allowed, even on leads. However, I see a lot of people seemingly ignoring the signs.
Yeah, you do get people that ignore the signs. I think for here, because the Department of Conservation obviously care about the wildlife, it's more to do with the fact that they're protecting whatever's on the beach. I mean, we've been here for...
Nearly 2 months?
Nearly 2 months. We have seen seals on the beach. We saw a whale on the beach.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't alive.
It wasn't alive.
You know, it would have been a nice dinner for a dog, but...
Yeah, we saw we saw a seal pup that had been washed up on the beach. So I can understand that obviously they've got the signs in place to protect what's here, but inevitably you do get people that will ignore the signs.
One thing I'd like to add as well is it may say like no dogs, but it might just be referring to a certain area on the beach. Like the beach nearest us here in Christchurch is New Brighton, and actually if you look online, I sort of just wanted to have a look because the housemate's got a dog and we were taking her out, just to see where you're actually meant to take them, and it said, you know, 100 metres south of the pier and 300 metres north of the pier is the only place that dogs aren't allowed on the beach. Everything else was just open to go. So if you look online, you can actually see specifically where, you know, where the dog is allowed, because it might be that it's just in that main populated part.
I think also just to add, we live by a wetland area, and as I was walking Bean, the dog that we're residing with. There was a sign and it had mapped areas, and it said dogs are not allowed in this area, but dogs are allowed here if they're on leads. And some areas as well, it said dogs were allowed if they have good recall. I can't remember the exact phrasing that they put.
It's good control.
Yeah, if your dog is, if you have good control of your dog, then they're allowed in this area, which I think is a nice little thing.
It is. That's up to everybody's individual interpretation, though. Everyone thinks they have good control of their dog until they don't.
Our housemate has good control of his dog, but we don't. Okay, so this question that we do know the answer for, I think. Do you need a boat license to buy and use a motorboat?
So for like personal use, or like I suppose private use, you don't. There is a course they recommend you take. It's like a Coast Guard course.
The housemate that we're living with, so his dad, he has a boat, and I was asking him the same question, and he said, nope, you can just buy a boat and off you go. Which was, I think, a bit worrying, but at the same time, I guess if you're going to buy a boat and go out on the water, you sort of know what you're doing. But yeah, they do have the Coast Guard course, like Ed said, so probably they recommend you doing that before you just buy a boat and
just
go out.
go without doing any research. So next question is someone worried about time frames in terms of visas and how long it's going to take to get the visa back from the initial application. So should we do a little rundown of basically how our application went? Because it wasn't necessarily all super smooth sailing. It all went well enough, because obviously we're here, but could have been faster. We
both had quite different experiences with our visa application as well, because of our circumstances. Do you want to start with a rough time frame of how we...
Yeah, so we started off filling out the just initial... I mean, you literally only kind of do one application thing for the working holiday one on the New Zealand immigration site. I can't remember exactly what, INZ, I think it is, something like that. Immigration New Zealand, I think is what the website's called. We'll link it in the bottom, it's fine. So literally apply on there. Once you've applied, you get a confirmation email saying thanks for submitting, we'll be in contact if we need anything, blah 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 blah. Now, depending on how long you're doing your working holiday visa for, depends on if you need a medical or anything. Now, because we were doing 3 years, we did. So that involved booking in up a clinic. It was up in London, was our closest one, in Knightsbridge, and it was a bit of a weird kind of experience, wasn't it?
It was. So with the working holiday visa, you do have to do a medical. If you're coming here for a year, you don't, but if you're here for 2 or more years, you do. So from the UK at least, as of July, they sort of launched a new visa, which was anyone from the UK can travel, work, stay here for 3 years. And it's the same for Kiwis as well. They can go to the UK and do the same thing. Whereas before, it used to be a year working holiday visa, and you could work for 6 months and travel for 6 months, but you can work for the entire 3 years on this one, which is really good.
Take that.
Yeah. So they want to make sure that you're in good health before you come over, and you're not costing their healthcare system lots of money, basically. So yeah, we showed up at Knightsbridge, and we joked about how is it going to be a case of going and tapping our knees, and that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
Yeah, they just want to know some questions about your health. I mean, personally, I have quite a few health problems, so I went to my doctor beforehand and made sure I had a list of all of my medications, so they obviously know what they're used for. And then they do the chest x-ray just to make sure that you don't have TB.
Yeah, that took like 5 seconds. I was expecting it to be so much longer, but it's literally, stand here, grab this thing,
and then
done, there you go, cool, fine. Blood test, urine test as well, just checking for anything super abnormal. But yeah, kind of bish bashed and boshed out within about an hour or so. After the medicals, they actually submit it all to Immigration New Zealand for you. You don't have to do it yourself, they do it. Another thing that you will need, if you're doing, again, I think it's just the 2 or 3 year ones, is the police check. Type in on Google UK police check certificate. Fill out this little form, email it off. It's a bit weird because you just email it to a random email address. It may have changed because I think their portal was down for some reason when we did it. But it was literally send it off, and then 2 or 3 weeks later came through the post certificates.
The police certificate is valid for 6 months, I believe. I don't know if that's changed, but if it has changed, we'll put it below. Because some visas can take longer than others. From what I can remember, the chest x-ray is valid for 3 months, and then the police certificate is valid for 6. So obviously you don't want to be having your medical and your police certificates done and then applying for your visa and
way later.
Yeah, and there's a backlog.
We actually timed it quite well, really. We applied for the police thing. A week later, we then applied for the visa. Mm-hmm. A week later, we then had our medical. There's lots of slots for the medical, so just look on the websites for the various clinics. At least the Knightsbridge one had slots like for all week, kind of sort of thing. Normally they are Monday to Friday, so you might need to book a day off work if you're working, but it's easy enough. After that, basically you wait for contact from Immigration New Zealand. First thing they asked us for was the police certificates, so we just scanned them in, sent them off in an email. That was after a couple of weeks, I think, for both of us. That was actually pretty quick.
Yes.
And then for me, I hadn't heard anything for another sort of 3 weeks, and it said, it should take at most up to 4 weeks. So I was like, I wonder what's going on here. Checked in my spam email. From a week ago, your visa has been approved. I'm like, oh, cool.
So yeah, you had your visa for
a
ages.
Week, I didn't even realise.
And you didn't even realise it. So then obviously I was eager to check my spam box and nothing had come through. But I think it's important to mention actually that once you start the application process, everybody gets allocated their own immigration officer. For us, we got assigned the same lady. A lot of people have said that it could be a bit hit and miss with them. Sometimes they're a bit rubbish at replying. We didn't have that problem at all.
Not at all. No, they were really fast at getting back to us, actually.
Yeah,
within
they
a
were.
couple of days. Sometimes even at weekends, which was odd.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that.
Like a Sunday in the middle of the night, in New Zealand
New
time.
Zealand middle of the night.
We would get a reply. So, we didn't have that problem, personally. If you do have health problems, obviously don't let that put you off at all. They just want to dig a little bit deeper and just make sure that you're not going to exploit the healthcare system. You're going to come here and have pose a huge risk, and you're going to cost them loads of money, which I think is fair enough.
Completely fair. Yeah.
So yeah, for me it was just a case of I received an email from both ends actually. So the immigration officer said that we just require some further information about your health, and Knightsbridge doctors as well contacted me saying that that they'd sent everything off their end, but they require further information in terms of the application process because they handled it all for us. I contacted my surgeon and specialists and just said that New Zealand Immigration had a few questions, and they were actually good, and they emailed me with a list of all the questions that they wanted the surgeon to answer specifically. So he had a bit of a template, he answered them, I sent it off, and then
2-3 weeks later?
Yeah.
Did take a while.
And then I got my visa. Yeah, I was getting a bit annoyed. And I was like, no, they're not going to let me in the country.
But it was fine. We're here.
Yeah, we're here. We made it.
So I think overall mine took probably 4 weeks or so from start to finish, which is about what it had on sort of the website, because when you apply it has like an estimated time that they get them back, and when we applied it was 4 weeks. Constantly changing though, depending on how many applications they're getting. Yeah. Yours, I think, overall probably 7?
About 7
Ish
weeks.
at the end.
So, but again, don't let it put you off. It's completely circumstantial to everybody. I mean, we're not always the epitome of good health, like yourself.
I guess one thing to remember as well when you're applying for a visa is don't book a flight before you have the visa.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, it's an estimate. It's not a set in stone timing thing. As much as we had wanted to book flights for ages and ages, we were just like, we can't.
Let's wait.
Just in case anything comes up, delays it, they need any other information, let's wait until we both have the visas and do it then. Sure, you want to get out here, you want to do it as quick as possible, but sometimes just playing it safe is better, right? Otherwise it's a waste of money on a flight, and you don't want to pay the airlines however much money just to change a date. Alright, well that's going to wrap up the questions we have for today. Obviously we've covered a lot of different things, but there is so much more to cover out there, and we will
Heaps more.
Heaps more, sorry. Sorry, I haven't picked up the Kiwi heaps. But if there's anything you would like to hear about or like to know about the process of getting out around the world, pop it in the comments.
Yeah.
And
We've got some experience.
yeah, we've done a bit. I've done it twice.